everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. Today I am going to attempt to create a cottagecore style witch hat. I just thought, it's spooky season. I just made that Gunne Sax pumpkin harvest dress and I thought it'd be really fun to kind of pair that dress with a very cottagecore style witch hat and just kind of use that like as my Halloween costume this year. I mean, I have the 1850s dress obviously as well, but like it's a little bit big for just doing Halloween at home. So when I'm handing out candy to kids and stuff like that, I think I'm just going to dress up as Harvest Witch. And I thought that a cottagecore hat would be the perfect addition. So last year I did make a buckram witch hat, like big, sparkly, spider webby. I'm going to link that right up here and down below in the description. This one is going to be a lot, hopefully, more simple. It is going to have a felt base. So this is a wool rayon blend felt from Joann's. Like it's the slightly more expensive one, but it was honestly, I got it for the color. It was just the only sort of like mossy colored felt that they had. And so yeah, I got 1.5 yards of it. Hopefully that will be enough. I don't really figure that this is going to be super large. I plan to cut circles that are like about 18 inches across because that is half of the width of this fabric. So I'm not using a pattern for this. Famous last words. I'm just going to kind of wing it and see how this works. Basically, I want a wired brim so that I can shape it however I want. And then I want that really long, wrinkly, pointy top, which I may need to put a wire in. We'll see. And then I'm going to decorate it with like harvesty bloom type stuff and probably a lot of leaves because I've got a lot of like fake leaves. And yeah, we're gonna see how that turns out. So I am going to start by cutting these circles. Again, like this is the half width of this felt, and I feel like this is a good width right here for a hat. It seems pretty normal. So I'm just gonna start by cutting out 2 really big circles and then cutting out the inner circle out of each of them to fit that to my head. I'm not going to be wearing this with like a wig or anything like this, so it just needs to be fitted to my head. And then I am going to wire one of them. So I'm going to use millinery wire and put that around the exterior of the circle. And then I'm going to put the 2 circles together. So let's go ahead and get started. So since I still had it out from last week's bonnet project, I'm using the pattern piece for the brim from this one, which I think is like view D, I think, for the sort of guideline for this brim. However, my fabric is wider and I want to take advantage of that. So as you can see, I've drawn in a circle just roughly, I literally didn't measure it, just like roughly drew it about 1 inch larger all the way around than the brim pattern. And then I did use the inner circle so that I could kind of get an estimate of like how it should fit my head. So now I'm going to cut this out and put the wire on one side. The millinery wire just gets zigzagged on about a little over 1/2 inch from the edge of the brim. Is what it looks like with the wire all on. This is the overlap point right here, which all I do once I get to the overlap is I increase the stitch width over here. And then to see the other side, this is what it looks like. I chose a thread that really blends in, so you can barely even see that it's there, which is cool because I'm not like binding this or anything. Now what we're going to do is we are going to put right sides together, as in this side with this, and do a straight stitch all around the outside on the outside of that wire. So I'm going to do it wire side up so that I know where I'm steering, and then the straight stitch is just going to be on the outside of that wire. And I'm going to put these 2 together and then clip my curve all the way around and turn them right sides out. So this is what the brim looks like now. I haven't cut out like the little crenellations basically here where you have to wind up attaching it to the crown of the hat, but it will get a little bit wider to go around my head once I cut that out. And I was just measuring my head to determine how big around the base of the cone part should be, and it looks like it is like 22 3/4, which is good because that actually works out really nicely as far as being like a 1/2 inch larger seam allowance than this hole too. So that's perfect. I did actually go into into my pattern stash and look up to see if I had any patterns that would kind of give me a base diagram that I could then alter to get the cone part of the hat. And I wound up finding Simplicity 9006 that has a little witch hat, but it's really little. Like, this is the cone part of this. First off, it's way too big around. This makes up for a 24-inch head, which is really big. And then secondly, it's like so short. So mine is going to be narrower than this down at the bottom, but it's also going to be a lot longer. So I'm basically just gonna kind of play around with it and see what size I get, because yeah, I want this to be like really large and kind of bendy and swoopy at the bottom. So I might have to do a little bit of just like playing with the felt to see, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut an altered version of this out of the rest of my felt and sew up like the back seam and just see what I get. So here is the cone shape, which right now looks like an interesting elf hat, but yeah, I think that it will work. It seems to fit nicely on my head. I don't even have a wire in here, but it's because the felt is like thick, it's kind of holding its own shape, so I might not even have to do anything with that. But this is the shape folded in half like that. So yeah, it worked really well. It's just to turn it right sides out, and I do want to try to press at least this crease out of it. This was like where the factory fold of the fabric was. But now I get to go ahead and I get to attach this to the brim. So again, I'm going to cut little slashes all around this here. I might do a circle of thread first, half an inch out from this circle, just because that will give me a guide of where to cut to and will also kind of adhere these two layers together. So I think I'll do that first, and then I'll do all those little slash cuts, and then they'll just kind of bend inwards and they will get glued, just hot glued, to the inside of the hat like that. And that's how the two pieces go together. Oh, by the way, I don't think that this step was necessarily necessary, but I did decide to go ahead and just press up the bottom edge of the crown here. I mean, this is felt, so it's not going to fray anyway, but it just gives it that nice little clean edge. So as you can see, the brim and the crown are now assembled. What I have done here is, this is the seam over here, and I've just taken a bunch of little pleats. I think I'm going to just do a quick little tack stitch on each of those, but it's making this really fun curve effect by having those little pleat tucks in there. So I'm really liking that. And I also wanted to show you what the inside looks like. So it just looks like there where I've glued those in. I mean, I could cover them with a band or something like that if I really cared. I don't care enough. This is like, you know, a costume hat, but I definitely like this. I'm debating about even putting one more in there, but I think that's a pretty nice curve, and it's standing up really well on its own. So I don't plan to put any wires in there. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and make those little tacks with just, you know, hand sewing, and then it's time to decorate. All of the little tucks are now sewn in, just a few stitches on each one, and I have decorated the hat just with hot glue. I have made a band out of these leaves that I got from the dollar store, and then some flowers. A couple of them are from Joann's, a couple of them were randomly just in my stash already, but it means that my hat is now done. I do feel like the brim, I mean, it's wired so I can move it kind of wherever I wanted to, but I do feel like it's maybe a little bit floppier than I would have liked. I mean, it is just 2 layers of felt with wire in the brim, so like there's no buckram or stiffening or anything. It's really the wire that is holding it out, but I think that it's super cute. I'm excited to wear this to the pumpkin patch because that is my plan. So I will probably be inserting some footage now with me wearing my Gunne Sax dress and this hat at the pumpkin patch. to be it for me for this hat video. I hope that this was fun and enjoyable for you, and let me know if you wind up making a hat like this as well. I mean, it was super, super easy to make. By the way, I did not need that full 1.5 yards of the felt. I actually still have this much left that's like completely uncut. So I think that's almost a 1/2 yard right there. So you can probably make this out of like just about a yard, maybe just over a yard of felt. So yeah, you don't need to get quite as much as I did. And this was narrow with felt too. Again, this was just 36 inches wide. If you get the really standard stuff, like the cheap stuff at Joann's, then it is going to be floppier, like that felt is less stiff, but it is wider, so you'd need less. So I don't know, I recommend springing for just the slightly nicer, stiffer felt. It doesn't need to be wool felt, but again, I do really like this wool rayon, except that this smells really, really bad when you press it. It smells like a bad art class, like kids art class. Just FYI. So anyway, if you liked this video and if you wind up making this hat, please go ahead and tag me on Instagram because I would love to see your creations. I think it turned out so cute, so perfect for fall. And if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do, by the way, have a whole bunch of millinery videos that I've done, so I've linked those all in a playlist or right up here and down below in the description. If you'd like to help support my channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon and Mirage. Thank you all so, so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing and happy Halloween!